Just while we chat to Andy Brassell, who's fresh from the Club World Cup, Pep Guardiola was speaking to the media after the 6-0 win over Abu Dhabi-based club Al Ain. He responded to critics of the tournament.
I had the feeling that it's a privilege to be here. For the people say, why it's so annoying, why you should be here. But to here is a privilege because in 4 years' time, it's not going to happen again. And to be in 4 years' time to happen again, you have to win big prizes. I don't know what's going to happen. And once we're here, I love when I see Botafogo, Fluminense, all the teams, Brazilian teams, Argentinian teams, how celebrate the goals, how they are together. I invite them. I love them. I like them. It's cultural for the fans are more here than European teams. But the way they live every single action is because, and this is all about, you have to live that competition.
There we are, it was Pep Guardiola.
You're on your own, mate.
Well, maybe drinking the Kool-Aid, literally and metaphorically. Our next guest, who's been over in LA for a week or so, watching it all unfold, Andy Brassell. Good afternoon, Andy.
Afternoon, fellas. How are you?
Good, thank you. Andy's not a massive fan. He's hoping Chelsea lose to the Evening Standard Tunis on Wednesday and can all come home. But what was your sense of it? I mean, the South American fans are clearly massively up for this, massively
invested.
Because
it's not a level playing field for them. It's it's their advantage, isn't it?
Well, there's an athletic advantage. I think that much is clear, but they're clubs with much smaller budgets in many cases, even if Brazilian clubs are rich by South American standards. So I think it's proved to be a leveller so far. That's clear. But I think the thing to bear in mind when we're talking about what the value of the competition is what is it worth to the fans? So what is it worth to us watching at home? What is it worth to the people going to the games? And some of the reception has been a little bit lukewarm. It was certainly my experience in Los Angeles. Obviously, there's a lot going on there politically at the moment, and a lot of the things happening politically, as I was saying on Trans Europe Express last night, are squarely focused on a demographic of society that does a lot to support soccer in that part of the US and does a lot to really get people on board with soccer, the Latino community. I think that's unavoidable, and that definitely affects the atmosphere. Having said that, I think you look at Mexican and Brazilian supporters who are coming to see the games is different. And also for a lot of the US soccer following community, as a US soccer supporting friend and football journalist pointed out to me, we're used to paying, he said, $400 for rubbish seats, seeing a Chelsea team that's not bothered versus a Real Madrid team that's not bothered, or their reserves, or they're not ready for the season, or whatever, in a July in a friendly. And now we're seeing these teams turn up for games that actually matter with a trophy at the end of it. So I think we've got to not just look at it from our own perspective, but from other perspectives in the world. Look, it's happening for the wrong reasons. I don't think that's arguable. It's about the quality, it's about the money rather than the quality of the tournament. And I think it's a concern that we're already hearing about expansion, or it happening every 2 years, or stuff like that. And something has to give in the football calendar. But all I'm saying is we can't just look at it from a Eurocentric point of view, because that's one of the major problems with football and distribution of wealth anyway.
Yeah, you say that though, but it's not a fair playing field. I mean, they're playing in the middle of their season. We're flogged. And the conditions they're playing in are conditions they're used to. I mean, it's complete advantage to the Brazilian and South American teams. You saw a team like Bayern. Bayern are a pretty poor team, but they gave Bayern a good game, didn't they?
Who are Bayern?
Sorry, Boca. Yeah. I beg your pardon. Boca are a very poor team, really, and they gave Bayern a good game.
That's kind of a myth in many cases about being more used to the weather. I mean, you've got Boca coming over from, or Brazilian teams coming over from winter in many cases, and coming into a really hot environment. I think if you look at, say, the way that Botafogo beat PSG, it was just by boxing smart. They know they're not a better team than them. I've seen PSG a lot at first hand this season, and that was the first game where I didn't feel like they were going to score. Like the way they defended was amazing. And look, it might not be an edifying neutral spectacle or anything like that. But look, I think every fan wants to see their team try and win any which way in many cases, and they did very well at that. I think there's a lot of things that will make it different the next time as well. It looks like it's probably going to be in Brazil as things stand at the moment, rather than the United States. If we're talking about the actual usefulness of this tournament to football as a whole, obviously it's replaced in the calendar the Confederations Cup, which was pretty useless, but was a test event really in many ways for the World Cup. And in terms of America's ability, the United States of America's ability to host a tournament, this is flagging a lot of things that hopefully people won't have to go through next year. Now, look, I know when we look at major tournaments, the frustrating thing, and we've seen it at European club finals, is the same mistakes are made again and again and again in terms of making it a good experience for supporters, providing drinking water, all this sort of stuff that should really be the basics. And some of the stuff that I saw in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, it was, especially with that 12 o'clock midday kickoff for the locals between PSG and Atletico, there were 80,000 people there, and it was really uncomfortable for people with kids and families, and it is just totally unacceptable having to queue for 40 minutes for water. But people pulling that up now will mean that hopefully that won't happen next year. Although, like I said, politically so much is changing so quickly that there's only a limited amount, I suppose, we can take from it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Paul Pogba and this possible move to Monaco. Apparently, one of the Saudi clubs have suddenly entered the frame. But from his point of view, wanting to play in the World Cup next year, I suppose it will tell us, what his future plans and his ambitions are, really, where he ends up next.
Yeah, and look, I think the main thing is the World Cup, as you say, Paul, because for him, and he's never broken dialogue with Didier Deschamps. Deschamps has been really supportive of him throughout everything that's happened. And remember, it's not just a drug ban that got cut from 4 years to 18 months. It's the fact that there was this extortion case which involved members of his own family. In fact, a cousin of one of the guys who got put in prison for it plays for Monaco, which is an interesting little dynamic to add to it. But I think Monaco feels like a great fit for him. Look, we have no idea what sort of football is going to turn up, because it's like bringing a guy out of retirement. He's not started a game since he was at Manchester United. He's not played a full 90 minutes, until since he was at Manchester United in March 2022. He's not played any game of any sort since turning out for Juventus against Empoli in beginning of September 2023. So we know what sort of player he has been. We don't know what player he is now. We don't know if he's ready to play every week or some weeks. He's 32 years old now. But I think if there's one place that you can get that together, not just being in Ligue 1 and being right in front of Didier Deschamps, it's the fact that Monaco is a different environment to all those other clubs in the league. So there you're not one of the most famous people in the city. It's not like being in Marseille where you're going to get mobbed all the time. You'll be able to go and do his shopping, go for dinner, all that sort of stuff without any sort of hassle, because he's not even in the top 50 most famous people in Monaco. So I think to have that sort of breather and to be able to just concentrate on the football and live his life with his family normally, whilst obviously there being tax advantages and him therefore getting paid more than he would at any French club, I think will be a big thing. And in terms of turning public opinion back round to him, and he's never really lost that link with the football family, I think to really give something back to Ligue 1 when it's on its uppers at the moment. There's no TV deal at the moment. They're coming out of a TV deal and trying to set up their own TV channel. To have a big name to sell the league wherever he is football-wise, I think is really important. Remember, he's never even played in Ligue 1 before.
That's right. He went from Le Havre's under 15s to United's academy, didn't he?
Exactly. So the feeling that he's giving something back, I think he's pretty good. And to think that he could have gone to the US or he could have gone to Saudi for loads more money, it shows that he's serious about the rest of his career.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It seems Bayern, smarting at not getting Florian Wirtz, trying to turn their attentions to Jamie Gittens and trying to hijack that Chelsea deal. So you think they are hurting Andy Bayern at the moment with that slight?
They're not the same player, though, are they?
No, they're not the same player.
No, they're not. And you're right, Andy. They're going for they've got a massive long list, the sort of list that you would write on a piece of paper like Jack Kerouac wrote On the Road. I mean, they've got so many people who they're going for at the moment because I think they're reacting, as you say, Paul, with that hurt, because they're not used to, if they want the best player in Germany, the best player in Germany is going to come to them. Except Florian Wirtz, whose dad was trying to persuade him to go, whose dad had a good relationship and a load of meetings with Uli Hoeneß. And he said, okay, Dad, I'll go back and speak to them. And he was like, I've heard what you've got to say a second time, and no, I'd rather go to Liverpool. And I think for them, it's a real struggle to compute. You know, they've been doing everything they normally do, buttering him up in the papers and saying he's the best player in Germany. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß have been doing that for 8-9 months. And he's just chosen to do Liverpool instead. So I think there's a sense of they don't really know how to react to that. Now, you talked about them maybe going in for Jamie Gittens. This is the other problem with their list of other like creative players, there's not really another player like Florian Wirtz that they can go for, so it's probably going to be a wide player. But you think Nico Williams is another one. These players would prefer to go to other clubs. You know, Gittens thought he was going to Chelsea. You know, he was sitting around on the last day of the mini transfer window deadline, just at the training ground, thinking, I'm just waiting for the nod to go to London and sign, and it never happened. I'm sure that will probably go ahead at some point later in the summer. Nico Williams would rather go to Barcelona. So they're in a really unusual position. And what they're trying to do really is take advantage of a situation like Nico Williams, where Barcelona are going to struggle to piece it together financially and think, okay, can we nip in here and do something?
Andy, we're out of time, but good to talk to you. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Andy Brassell there, one half, of course, Trans Europe Express, the excellent show every Sunday covering European and world football with Danny Kelly.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.